Moving on now, as the threat from China is at an all-time high, and this is a related report, the Indian Navy could be on alert to respond as the government chooses it to, but it has also ramped up its efforts already to improve capabilities in preparation for a possible mission to respond to China in the Indian Ocean region. Some of those things that the Admiral just mentioned, they're fleshed out in this report. As the Ladakh border simmers, the Indian Navy is focused on its domain, the ocean. With the Indian government considering several options to pressure China at sea, let's tell you about where things stand just in 3 crucial maritime asset areas. India has a single aircraft carrier, while China has 2 active aircraft carriers. India has a single nuclear attack submarine. China has at least a dozen. India has over a dozen active conventional submarines. China has over 50. But India is still speeding up acquisitions. India's indigenous aircraft carrier, the new Vikrant, is making steady progress and will add to India's force projection strength in the Indian Ocean in the next couple of years. In fact, this satellite image from last month shows the massive ship moving from its construction berth to a new position on its own power, indicating that there has been very visible progress in this complex project. In another crucial force acquisition focused in part on the China threat in the Indian Ocean, India has just ordered 24 US-built MH60 Romeo anti-submarine warfare helicopters earlier this year, with the first 3 to be delivered by December itself. These helicopters come armed with anti-ship missiles and torpedoes capable of engaging both standoff distances. While the Indian Navy has made progress in aircraft carriers and anti-submarine helicopters, it is still woefully short of submarines. But here too there is progress, with existing conventional submarines being augmented with 6 Scorpion-class submarines and plans to build 6 additional submarines of a type yet to be chosen. On the nuclear submarine front, the Indian military complex is developing India's first nuclear attack submarines as well. Ships, aircraft carriers, helicopters and submarines will only be the means to an end. What India now needs is a focused policy on how to apply force to pressure China. Bureau Report, India Today. Vice Admiral Anup Singh and India Today's executive editor Sandeep Unithan join me live. Admiral Singh, thank you for your time. Straight question to you, sir. Could India, is this an appropriate time for India to exercise some kind of a naval option, sir, to pressure China during this current standoff?
Well, thank you for getting me on having me on your channel, Shiv. The first thing that one needs to fully comprehend is that naval forces are in a different kind of play as against land forces. Yes. Land forces are face-to-face. Skirmishes can get triggered by patrol parties, as you saw recently. Whereas in the case of navies, and particularly navies that are technology-oriented and are in their own home waters, like the Indian Ocean, which is full of choke points, totally unlike the Pacific and the Atlantic.
Yes.
Despite very serious disparity in numbers between the Indian Navy and the PLA Navy, it is advantage India for obvious reasons, because first of all, these are home waters. We do not have problems of logistics. We do not have problems of familiarization, nor do we have problems of knowing who's where, at what time, and with what intentions.
Yes.
Now, all that requires A, technology, B, familiarization 24/7, and that means reconnaissance.
Correct.
So it is these choke points which actually have given rise to a large number of problems to the littorals of the Indian Ocean region. And those include non-traditional threats.
Yes, yes.
And that is the reason that the Indian Navy is mounted 24/7 surveillance over the important and the critical choke points like the Gulf of Aden and the Malacca Straits. Now, since the time of Hu Jintao, you've heard this phrase, the Malacca dilemma.
Yes.
And it is for real insofar as China is concerned. After all, 80% of its energy resources travel through the Malacca or the Lombok Straits.
Yes.
Just south of the Malacca. And they have to come out of the Persian Gulf, from the west coast of Africa, and from elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Over 60% of its finished goods, which are exports, which are the lifeblood, both the things, the import of oil for its manufacturing shop floor, for which it has become number one in the world, and the finished products which it exports to countries starting from the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf, over to Europe and to the Americas.
Yes.
All have to pass through the Indian Ocean,
Absolutely.
through the Malacca Strait.
Absolutely.
That's why it is the Malacca dilemma.
You know, I'm going to, yes, I just want to come back to one specific point, sir. I want to bring Sandeep in on this as well, and then I'm coming straight back to you. Sandeep, you know, we know that, you know, choking the Chinese, threatening their trade in the sea lanes of communication of the Indian Ocean have been options for many years. You know, those options have gained a lot of significance now because there is an urgent need for India to leverage against the Chinese because of what's happening in Ladakh. Can you tell us specifically what you're hearing, Sandeep, about what India's naval actions could potentially be?
Well, thank you, Shiv. Shiv, firstly, I must say that the naval option is going to be the weapon of last resort.
Yeah.
And the Navy will only enter in all the scenarios that the panelists have mentioned, only in the event of a full-scale shooting war. And just because of the complexity of the whole situation, you know, because while there is a Malacca dilemma, that's for real. You have 80% of China's trade and energy supplies passing through the narrow Malacca Straits. In fact, the whole Chinese economic machine runs on oil that comes from the Middle East.
Yes.
And that explains their Malacca dilemma. But there are huge problems of targeting these ships. You know, there are so many, there are literally thousands of merchantmen that transit through the Malacca Straits every single day. If you see a picture of that Malacca Straits traffic, it's very, very complex, it's dense. So it's very, very difficult for you to pick up, you know, a vessel of your choice and to target it. And don't forget, these are international waters and it could have huge repercussions. But that said, this is the weapon of last resort, and the Navy has been working on it over the last couple of years in a very, very careful, calibrated manner. They've been, you know, if you look at the Indian Ocean as a big chessboard, the Indian Navy has been placing the pieces on this chessboard very slowly over the years. You know, the maritime patrol aircraft that Admiral Mehta mentioned were acquired a few years back, P8Is. They're absolute game changers when it comes to you know, picking up any vessel and submarine that enters the Indian Ocean region.
Indeed.
We're getting the 24 Romeo. So these are those little chess pieces that are appearing on the Indian Ocean chessboard. And we are also making a lot of friends in the neighborhood, the Indian Ocean littoral countries. We're looking for base. As late as last month, we had a very crucial dialogue with Australia. And, you know, I can confirm that the items on the agenda is the lease or the use of an Australian island called the Cocos, Indian Ocean, for Indian P8Is. And that is going to, you know, give them the ability to survey large parts of the Malacca Straits and, you know, eastwards into the other Lombok Straits and the Sunda, Makassar Straits. All of those vital areas of Chinese shipping pass through.
Okay.
But, you know, these are, I must say, these are a weapon of last resort to be used absolutely in the event of a full-scale shooting war.
Okay, so only in a last resort kind of scenario. Admiral Singh, given that you know, the long-term intentions of the Chinese Navy have been, you know, largely unknown for a very, very long time, and even though the Indian Navy you know, stands in very good stead against the Chinese Navy, even though it has much higher numbers, etc., for obvious reasons, my question to you, sir, is, are there, you know, apart from offensive actions or, you know, kinetic actions in the Indian Ocean, are there any immediate things, any immediate maneuvers that the Indian Navy can to turn the screws? You know, I'm talking about applying the pressure on China, signaling to China that if you provoke us on land, we can threaten you at sea.
Well, exactly, Shiv, exactly what I said right in the beginning, that that navies, the play of the navies at sea is entirely different, even in actual conflict. You're not face to face, first of all, because of standoff ranges. Secondly, you are in the business of marking and countermarking. That means even in peacetime, when I said that you're all the time keeping the Malacca and the Lombok Straits and various other areas, including the Gulf of Aden, where the Chinese have set up in Djibouti, an overseas base, we keep a watch. And the Chinese know that we are keeping a watch.
Yes.
This is not a banana republic and this is not a patrol vessel navy. So that's exactly what I meant. Now, there is when I said the Malacca dilemma, it didn't mean that we are trying to hit at China's Achilles heel. But the fact that the entire strategic lines of communication, I like to call it strategic instead of sea lines of communication, whether it is oil, gas, or commodities and finished products, that happens to be the lifeblood of China.
Yeah.
So it doesn't want to get into any kind of a problem where anything gets disrupted. And it is for that reason that in our own home waters, we require to be alert 24/7 and to convey the message that we are watching. And when one potential adversary tries to get into home waters of the other and knows that it is being watched,
yes,
it has 50% of the problem has been sorted out.
Okay.
So China will not venture into anything that can disrupt its own economy.
Yes.
B, the balance of power in this area. Remember, many of the string of pearls reside in this ocean, including within the South Asian geographic construct, as well as in the east coast of Africa. And many of them are getting very, very worried and very wary of the kind of problems that they have got stuck in.
Okay. Sandeep, I'm going to play out a story right now about the most recent Indian Navy acquisition that you and I both covered, and then I'm going to come to you for a quick question on this. This is something that the Indian Navy, this is at the very, very tactical level. The Indian Navy has been looking for these anti-submarine warfare helicopters for a very, very long time, and it's actually symptomatic that it has taken so long for the Indian Navy to finally be able to sign a deal. Sandeep and I both covered this story. Here's the MH60 Romeo helicopters that Sandeep was talking about that will prove to be a game changer against the Chinese in the Indian Ocean. Take a look at what this helicopter can do.
These helicopters will be a game changer in the Indian Ocean region and will very much be a deterrent against Chinese action in India's oceanic backyard. India has ordered 24 US-built MH60 Romeo anti-submarine warfare helicopters earlier this year. The helicopters will replace the Indian Navy's aging Sea Kings, which have had a long and admirable run in service, but are now on their last legs. The MH60 Romeos will be deployed primarily on warships at sea for a variety of missions, but these helicopters have very specific offensive roles. The MH60 Romeos, manufactured by US firm Sikorsky, will form part of the carrier air wing on the Indian Navy's INS Vikramaditya aircraft carrier and other warships. They will be capable of flying missions to attack enemy ships, track and attack enemy submarines, conduct reconnaissance, and of course, for utility and troop movement. The US Navy has made the MH60S and the MH60R Romeo its staple for missions across the board, with large numbers entering service.
First and foremost, that the aircraft's proven by the US Navy as a really formidable ASW and anti-surface platform. And this aircraft is really maneuverable, very powerful.
The MH60R, a staple of the US Navy and the latest version of the venerable Seahawk series of helicopters, also comes formidably armed for India, with many weapons entering Indian service for the very first time. This includes Hellfire missiles for ground strike, the Naval Strike Missile for anti-ship missions, Mk-45 torpedoes to kill submarines, laser-guided rockets for precision attack, and machine guns for crew for close-in assault. With the deal signed, the first Romeos will be delivered to the Indian Navy in 2 years, with the rest following quickly over the following 2 years. A new era in helicopter capabilities now begins. Bureau Report, India Today.
Sandeep, the Indian Navy, by virtue of the size and the complexity of its military assets, obviously has to wait for a very, very long time to receive its ship and aircraft, etc. The helicopters that the Indian government signed when President Trump was here comes, very, very belatedly. The Indian Navy has wanted these for years and years. How crucial are these helicopters and what kind of difference will they make in the Indian Ocean region? Sandeep, you and I both know that the Chinese submarines have been intruding on a regular basis since 2014.
Well, Shiv, these helicopters are game changers. There's no two ways about it. And, the pilots that we've been speaking to in the Navy, the ASW experts, helicopter pilots, have all been telling us one thing, that we have allowed our ASW capabilities, particularly heli-borne ASW capabilities, to literally wither away over the last few years. They are at their lowest that they have been in decades. We've not got any new multi-role helicopters. And that's where the Romeos fit in. I mean, they pack a formidable punch, as you mentioned. They're multi-role helicopters, anti-surface warfare, anti-submarine warfare. They are going to add a formidable punch to our warships, because you and me have both seen this specter of warships being inducted into service with those two giant helicopter hangars at the rear with just a light helicopter to fit in, because the warship building has strangely not kept pace with the helicopter acquisition. So these 24 Romeos are going to be a huge, huge first step to rebuild our ASW capability.
Absolutely. Sure. Admiral Singh, I want to end with one question to you, because you've commanded the Eastern Naval Command. That's the home to India's largest submarine base as well. I wanted to ask you that question, sir. India's submarine force levels, even though efforts have been made to augment them, supplement them, build more, buy more, it still remains quite short of the large requirements and responsibilities of the Indian Navy's undersea arm.
Very true, Shiv. You've hit the nail on the head, and particularly with the geographic construct and the kind of responsibility that India has insofar as peninsular nature of its coastline is concerned.
Yes,
we've got far too little compared to what we need, and we've got far too many legacy platforms. And this is because acquisition of submarines after the Scorpion, which itself went through some problems insofar as final negotiations were concerned, has been far too delayed. There was a plan to build 24 submarines, 6 with foreign, 12 with foreign collaboration, and the balance completely Indian. Even the foreign ones, only the first 6, the Scorpions, are coming out now. Correct. Almost 15 years too late. So we need to spruce up that stable. But fortunately, we have those assets where they are required, and they are there 24/7.
Admiral Anup Singh, Sandeep, always a pleasure to hear detailed views from a sensitive topic, making it simple for our viewers to understand as well. This is a story that's going to continue in the days and the weeks ahead. This is the long haul, and hopefully naval action, as Sandeep rightly said, is going to be the last resort. But India needs to be decisive about how it piles the pressure on an unpredictable adversary that has shown some of its cards and not shown many of its other cards. Sandeep and Admiral Singh, thank you very much for joining me here on 5 Live.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.